For decades, the animation market has been dominated by family-friendly content designed to be as suitable as possible for all ages. This is mainly thanks to the dominance of a certain Western animation studio turned mega corporation headed by a certain anthropomorphic rat. And with the rise of studios like Pixar, DreamWorks, and Illumination, which only made children's films dumber and increasingly off-putting to adults, it seemed as though animation will forever remain stagnant as a medium for hollow child-based simulation that every person would eventually grow out of, and any desire for mature stories with actual nuance and an emotional through line would have to turn exclusively to live-action side cinema. However, fast forward to the 2020s, and animation is a whole different beast. From a League of Legends adaptation that wound up being one of the most well-written and visually dazzling TV shows of the decade, to a bloody samurai revenge epic with excellent characters and a level of violence to make even Quentin Tarantino blush, it's safe to say that animation is absolutely thriving, especially for adults. But I know what you're thinking. How the hell did we get here? Which is a fair thing to wonder, considering the seemingly out-of-nowhere explosion of adult-oriented animation has made major waves in modern entertainment. Well, to answer that question, we're gonna have to turn back the clock a bit to 2018, when the release of a certain movie would change the trajectory of modern animation forever, which I think you are all very aware of.
And the Oscar goes to... Mimi, you were right. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
This moment was the beginning of a renaissance. 3 months following its modest release in theaters, the 2019 Oscars aired on ABC. And despite Into Spider-Verse getting immense acclaim but little public attention, it shocked absolutely everybody by winning that year's Best Animated Feature award. Mind you, at that point, Disney and Pixar had become the de facto winners each year, having won the prize for 6 consecutive years and numerous times before then. No matter how little they deserved it or how much better the competition was, it was almost guaranteed to be another win for the fuck-ass rat company. It was at that moment that many people started to really appreciate the film, causing it to trend heavily on social media. Now it is one of the most cherished films of the 2010s, and movie studios, they took notice. While the movie's direct impact wouldn't be seen in the film industry for a good while, its impact would be seen in television space in the same year as Spider-Verse's Oscar win, with the release of an innovative adult anthology series from the streaming giant known as Netflix. Now, this is a big one because while Into Spider-Verse had a lot of adult appeal, it was still a family-friendly film at the end of the day, which meant that it fit into perception of animation being a medium primarily for children quite nicely. It just so happened that parents actually found themselves really enjoying it, which helped to gain a reputation among older audiences that it has. However, a man named Alberto Mielgo, who had a great hand in development of Spider-Verse's groundbreaking comic book visuals and was the film's official production designer, became charged with 2 episodes of Netflix's new boundary-pushing animated series, Love, Death, and Robots, a series made up of episodes that featured their own individual narratives and distinct art styles. While the series was already in production around the time Spider-Verse came out, by the time Alberto joined the production, he had just wrapped production on Spider-Verse and left Sony Animation for good, bringing all of his unique animation techniques and bold vision with him. This is especially evident in the series' 3rd episode, The Witness, which uses rough line art over 3D models, hand-drawn frames, unique visual glitches throughout the CG, and the animating of characters on twos, which is something that really got explored amid the development of Into the Spider-Verse. The series as a whole was truly unique in the world of animation, even considering Spider-Verse, and the wild story Netflix took with it paid off and then some, as it became a major critical and commercial success for the streaming giant, getting impressively high levels of viewership and winning over 30 awards, including 17 Emmys across 4 volumes. This is a series that shouldn't have done well on paper, as a gritty adult TVMA show with out-of-the-box visuals wasn't exactly a proven recipe for success. It was long perceived that animation for adults that didn't fall into the raunchy sitcom genre simply didn't work for American audiences, as they'd much rather watch something actually mature. But Love, Death, and Robots spat right into the face of that idea. It really laid the groundwork for future mature adult animated series to come, and it will only be 2 years until 2 of the most popular shows his new wave of adult animation would hit the scene and blow every expectation out of the water, with the first one being Based on the acclaimed comic book series of the same name, Invincible absolutely rocked the TV world with its unexpected release back in early 2021, or at least the finale did. Many forget that Invincible didn't actually do much upon its first batch of episodes, as it was overshadowed by other superhero shows at the time, like The Boys and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But when the final episode with the iconic Omni-Man vs. Invincible fight dropped, it went viral. All of a sudden, Invincible got this massive spike in interest seemingly overnight. It became one of Amazon's Amazon's most popular TV shows to this day. Whenever a new season of Invincible drops, it feels like an event, which is especially impressive considering we live in a time where the superhero market is nowhere near as lucrative as it was back in those early MCU and Dark Knight days. And it's for good reason, as Invincible is easily one of the best superhero stories out there, and it's acted as a gateway for many people into the world of mature adult animation. Which is great, because months after season 1 of Invincible finished airing, our good pals at Netflix struck again with the release of what might be the best thing to come out of this rise of pristine adult animation: Arcane League of Legends. This show right here is the one that truly redefined what animation could and should be. It took Spider-Verse's innovative visuals and cranked them through the roof, as no other piece of animation looks quite as entrancing and utterly jaw-dropping as Arcane's. Not to mention, Arcane is just such a brilliant series with an absolutely lovable cast of characters, incredible world building, and ungodly soundtrack, and just such an interesting story that keeps you hooked the entire way through. Arcane isn't just one of the greatest animated series of all time, but simply one of the best pieces of media Netflix has ever put out, which is wildly impressive considering the fact that it's based on League of Legends of all things. The series was a massive hit upon release, even more so than Love, Death, and Robots by a good amount. Arcane hit #1 on the global top 10 in 52 different countries multiple times, and across the 2 seasons it won 8 Emmys, making it the first video game adaptation to cop such a prestigious honor. Not to mention, it has a flawless 100% certified score on Rotten Tomatoes. Arcane is truly one of a kind and is by far the peak of the current adult animation renaissance, at least in my humble opinion. And it wasn't just big for animation, but for video game adaptations as well. It's no secret that most video game adaptations suck, and Arcane's insane level of quality proved that they don't always have to be pure shit. And that very sentiment was affirmed by the release of another Netflix video game adaptation just a year later, one that happens to come from the mystical land of Japan. Now, as far as adult animation is concerned, anime is one of the more complicated factors. Japanese animation's claim to fame is honestly amazing to see, as it went from something that some local high school losers watch into something that's become a mainstream juggernaut. Series like Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, and Chainsaw Man are insanely popular, and more anime get pumped out each damn week. And considering how anime is typically less afraid to tackle more mature themes in Western animation, it makes sense why so many adults enjoy it, even those who typically don't take animation very seriously. However, what makes the scenario complicated is the fact that most anime are considered adult in the US because of cultural differences, rather than their intention of making something specifically for adults to watch. Japan is way more lenient with what its youth watches, with many anime series being marketed towards younger audiences despite their more explicit content, which is something that just wouldn't fly here in the States. That's why a movie like The End of Evangelion got a hard R rating here, but got the equivalent of a G rating in Japan. It's ridiculous. That's the core reason why it's often hard to rope in anime in the adult animation discussion, as most anime aren't even made with adults specifically in mind, and people that do watch anime don't really have a desire to explore animation any further, nor are they looking for it to necessarily push forward and break from the stagnancy of most anime tropes and visuals, unless it's either based on a seinen comic like Berserk or Vinland Saga that was made with grown-ups specifically in mind, or is made in service of a Western studio that has a goal of making a series for adults that want animation made specifically for them. And this Netflix series falls into the latter. Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Despite being released on Netflix with minimal marketing, the series ultimately became a resounding critical and commercial success, faithfully adapting the raw and dystopian world of Night City through Trigger's gorgeous animation and distinct aesthetic. It did a perfect job of feeling like its own thing, while also feeling as though the game's DNA constantly courses through its blood, on top of delivering a mature and shockingly emotional story, which left an impact far beyond what its short episode count would let on. It's safe to say that Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a home run, and while it didn't necessarily get the major awards attention that some of the previously mentioned movies and shows did, it is still a masterfully crafted series that only helps bolster the adult animation market further, and asserting Netflix as a major player in the game. And they weren't done yet. 2023 was an absolutely massive year for animation, as Into Spider-Verse's impact was finally being seen in new film releases like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem and Netflix's very own Nimona, not to mention its sequel, Across the Spider-Verse, pushing the envelope regarding what was possible in animation yet again. It was far and away one of the most acclaimed movies of the year, animated or otherwise. It was a strong year for family animation 100%, but Netflix was ready to drop its most brutal and R-rated animated project yet, one with a serious amount of potential. Enter Blue Eye Samurai, an unapologetically bloody and violent samurai story set in Edo period Japan about a vengeance-driven woman who will stop at absolutely nothing to murder the 4 white men who assaulted her mother and gave her the blue eyes that made her an outcast in society. It is chock full of gory sword fights, intense sexual content, and nudity, making it by far the most adult animated show Netflix has ever ever put out. However, I'm happy to report that Netflix's bold swing with this series paid off tremendously, as Blue Eye Samurai became one of Netflix's biggest animated shows in history, leading them to renew it in just a little over a month after its premiere for a second season, which Netflix is notoriously reluctant to do. It won 4 Emmys and currently boasts a certified 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, making it not just a streaming hit, but a critical one as well. Blue Eye Samurai is easily the most acclaimed adult animated series since Arcane, with many considering it the show's prodigal son of sorts. Those 2 shows alone are more than capable of paving the way for the future of adult animation, and Netflix is the driving force behind both of them, which proves that the streaming giant is by far the king of adult animation. And if Blue Eye Samurai wasn't enough, that exact month they dropped another gem of a series that got surprisingly high reviews and big streaming numbers: Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Based on the popular comic book series and movie, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is definitely much more lighthearted than the movies and shows previously mentioned, but it still provides an entertaining story with a surprisingly strong emotional through line centered around the weight of the past and the importance of confronting the ugliest parts of yourself. It can hit pretty hard at times, and arguably does a better job in the film of bringing the iconic comic story to life, while also putting a unique spin on it. Science Sorrow produced it after Netflix came to them with the idea of making a Scott Pilgrim series following their lucrative partnership for the show Devilman Crybaby, putting it in a similar boat to that of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, and it worked brilliantly as they managed to adapt the classic story while also adding their special creative flair, on top of bringing back the entire live-action movie's cast, which was an incredible decision on their part. It may pale a bit in comparison to shows like Arcane or Blue Eye Samurai, but it's still a highly enjoyable adult series that got rave reviews from critics, made Netflix's global top 10 upon release, and even won Best Animated Series at the 29th Annual Critics' Choice Awards, which is pretty damn impressive. Having heard all that, you may be led to believe that Netflix was the only one truly backing up adult animation that year, when in reality, that's not the case at all, because while Netflix was soaking up all of the glory, Warner Brothers was cooking up a series that dropped with little fanfare, a sci-fi psychological thriller called Scavengers Reign. My, is this series really something. 3 intense survival stories all centered around the same mind-boggling world as the characters slowly lose themselves in hellish biological occurrences that reign on this mysterious planet. Each episode feels totally unpredictable, as if anything could happen at any moment. It's a series that really knows how to keep the viewer on edge, which is a big part of what makes it so damn impactful. Not to mention, the way these stories intertwine is just so interesting and leads to some truly wild conflict. Just about everything the show does is done very well, and deserves as much attention as some of Netflix's mature animated offerings get. Well, you know, that's the sad part, see. Despite its Emmy-winning certified 100% Rotten Tomatoes score, the show was a deeply unfortunate flop. It was canceled not long after its premiere on HBO Max, which is so upsetting because of how well made a TV show it is, and how unique it is from just about every other sci-fi series out there, animated or otherwise. Even though it didn't receive the attention that the previously mentioned shows did, likely thanks to Netflix's outpour of excellent adult animated content that year around the time of its release, it more than deserves its flowers for being a truly bold and beautifully crafted series made with the clear intent of pushing animation forward in a truly special way. And I just hope it gets some needed attention at some point down the line, because it genuinely deserves it. Now, 2024 wasn't exactly a major year for boundary pushing animation. Sure, we got excellent films like The Wild Robot and Flow, but as far as bold adult animation is concerned that aren't just subsequent entries to previously established series like Arcane Season 2 was, there really wasn't anything that made any real waves in popular culture. Alright, I'm gonna try and keep this relatively brief. Hazbin Hotel debuted on Amazon Prime Video in early 2024 after a very successful YouTube pilot in 2019 that caught the attention of A24, which led them to fund a full-fledged series. To say that Hazbin Hotel is a massive success is an understatement. It has an almost cult-like fan base, waves of merchandise, decent reviews from critics, spin-offs, Broadway shows, and insane streaming numbers. No matter how you feel about the show, it's undeniable that its impact is greater than a lot of shows airing today, and it has also inspired many creatives to pursue independent animation as a feasible outlet for lucrative storytelling. While considering this a mature adult animated series may be a stretch, it's really got more meat on its bones than many raunchy sitcoms airing today, as it has an actual plot and foreseeable conclusion that has led many to feel this strong attachment to its world and characters, and acts as a gateway for many people into the world of more focused adult animation, hopefully to more well-written one. Yes, as you can tell by my tone, I don't like the show. While I am happy for its success, the show just feels way too much like sloppily prepared junk food, as many of its components are messy and not necessarily well made, well thought out, or even outright bad, and you don't even feel satisfied after. People still eat that shit up though. At the end of the day, Hazbin Hotel has only popularized the world of linear adult animation, so people can become more open to discovering some of the best TV shows of the current decade. And that's what art is supposed to do, to impact you positively and open yourself up to experiences you may have never had otherwise. Hazbin Hotel may not be a particularly well-written show, but it clicks clicks with audiences anyway, and it's hard to hate a show that does so much good for the adult animation space and its rise in mainstream culture. And I hope it continues to do well in the foreseeable future. And that's basically it for 2024. As far as 2025 is concerned, we saw the wildly popular releases of 2 R-rated anime films, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Infinity Castle and Chainsaw Man Raise AR, in addition to the unexpected box office smash that was Neja 2 and the viral global sensation that is K-pop Demon Hunters, plus some utterly dazzling indie films like Arco and Little Amelie or The Character of Rain. All these films are wonderful boosts in animation's rapidly growing reach across various nations and cultures, and proves just how people of all ages and demographics are drawn to the balanced imagination and potential that animation as an art form holds. However, as far as mature adult animation, akin to the previously stated examples are concerned, there really wasn't too much worth noting, at least in the traditional methods of television distribution like channels or streaming platforms. But this, like a major mature adult content, has left the spotlight open for the rise of one of adult animation's absolute biggest contributors that few people seem to ever acknowledge, and that is the rapidly growing indie animation scene. Yeah, remember what I was saying about Hazbin Hotel's enormous success inspiring a huge wave of independent animation? Well, enter Glitch Productions, a studio that initially started life back in the early 2010s making Mario meme videos of all things for the channel SMG4. While they had attempted original pilots in the past, usually at a smaller scale and with heavy ties to their SMG4 videos, Hazbin Hotel's success gave them the push they needed to go all in on original indie animation, leading to the debut of Murder Drones in 2021 and The Amazing Digital Circus in 2023. Both of them, especially the latter, became massive hits online and generated hundreds of millions of views in relatively short spans of time, to find the notion that major studio backing is the only legitimate way to get your show noticed by the masses. However, as far as their impact on adult animation is concerned, it doesn't really do much, as while they're definitely not kids shows, they aren't necessarily adult shows either. However, in 2025, Glitch would release 2 brand new pilots that are much more mature than anything else they'd ever put out, with the first being the debut of the Gaslight District. Set in a hellish and gloomy island, it's a series about a group of undead gangsters that fight rival gangs for control of the last standing town in a post-apocalyptic world, where death means nothing and violence is everything. Sounds crazy, right? Well, it is. The pilot is a non-stop adrenaline rush with a bunch of brutal violence, likable characters, superb music, interesting world building, and some absolutely jaw-dropping visuals. It looks like a mix between the Spider-Verse films and Psychonauts, and I am here for it. While it could be a bit too fast-paced at points, I say this is a great pilot and has the potential to be the strongest series Glitch has ever put out. And it's got some competition, as 5 months later, we saw the release of their most strange and exciting project yet, Knights of Guinevere, a completely 2D psychological thriller that takes place in a massive amusement park in the sky, in which 2 individuals find a broken android mascot that could be the key to a better life, whilst also a potential enabler for a doom-struck future. This is easily Glitch's most well-made production, as it gives plenty of time for its characters to grow and the world to be naturally expanded on, while also giving us enough plot progression that it always feels like some new revelation in the story is being made, keeping it from ever feeling stagnant or as if it's going way too fast. This is by far my favorite thing Glitch has ever put out, as it has such an interesting world and such instantly likable characters that it's hard not to fall in love with every aspect of this superb plot. I'm praying that the full series gets greenlit, because this has the potential to be one of, if not the best indie series out there. The thing that both of these series absolutely nail is their ability to portray absolutely bonkers and bewildering worlds in a way that still feels somehow grounded and down to earth. There's a level of maturity that these pilots carry that makes it feel as though you are watching something with an actual weight. Like you didn't just watch something that merely entertained you, but left you with something much deeper. And I'm sure that both of these shows have very bright futures ahead of them. But yeah, that's basically it. Considering how stagnant the animation space was for so many years, it's clear that creatives are tired of the same old thing and want to expand the possibilities of what could be achieved via this lucrative artistic medium, which has led to the creation of some of the boldest films and shows of the decade. And it doesn't stop there, as more promising projects are set to release in the coming years, including subsequent seasons of Blue Eye Samurai and Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I'm not 100% sure what surprises await through the rest of 2026 and beyond, but whatever comes next, I know that I'll be ready. So yeah, happy 2026 everyone. This was a video I've been wanting to make for a while. So if you guys like this, be sure to, like, share, and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.